Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Federal employees are seeing some signs of stability. Retirement processing is improving, workforce protections are holding, and pay raise prospects are clearer. But with continuing resolutions and hiring freezes still in the mix, the path forward requires careful planning. Here with a look ahead is NARF Vice President for Policy and Programs, John Hatton. John, it's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start with a topic that some of our listeners are writing in about. September 30th was the end of the DRP and the day before the shutdown. And so folks who retired effective that day maybe are in a bit of a limbo about what the status is on their retirement packages. What are you hearing from OPM around the processing backlog?
So OPM seems to be trying to tackle this issue, and we've seen some reporting on statistics from OPM, but that may not show the full picture. So they have recently started reporting at least interim pay status. So once a claim gets to them, they have to initiate an interim pay, which is going to be some lower percentage than your full annuity typically. And they're reporting it's 6 days till interim pay. But that doesn't necessarily show how long it's taking to get from when you submit in your retirement date application and when that claim gets over to OPM. We're concerned that there is maybe some delays on the agency side, particularly impacted by the shutdown. I don't think we have good data yet on that to say exactly where it is, but here are some numbers. Kapoor said there was about in September said there was about 60,000 retirements in the online retirement system. So not yet at OPM, but they had visibility into them. And about 35,000 in September. In October, OPM received 20,000 claims. So if there's 35,000 in the system and only 20,000 got to OPM, that tells me there may be a delay of at least 15,000 getting over to OPM. Now, that also started the shutdown, so I can only imagine that caused some delays getting over through the process at the agency level. OPM itself was not impacted by the shutdown in terms of retirement services. They are exempt. They are funded through trust fund dollars, so it wasn't like they were shut down in terms of processing. But at the agency level, many people may not have been there. The other thing is they're reporting retirement claims processing, and we don't have the November figures in yet from OPM, so that'll tell us a little bit more about how they're doing. Their current stat on time to process the full claim is 66 days. That's down from 79, so that sounds like a good thing. But again, we don't have necessarily all the numbers visible. I think they're doing a little bit better showing some of those different stats on interim pay and even survivor benefit processing, but there's still a lot we don't really know.
So folks who are in this limbo status, who may not know where their file is right now, what's your advice for them?
Well, one, if you've done it through the online retirement application, you may be able to see if there's an issue where it's stuck at payroll, stuck at the agency level, and not over at OPM. And so maybe there's somebody you can talk to at their agencies. Now, we've heard from some members that there's nobody to talk to at their own agency, and maybe that's because there's been these large-scale reductions in force. It could have been a shutdown-related issue as well. So that's not great advice. You can always try to call OPM. We always try to help our members try to elevate claims when it's taken a longer time. I think for a September retirement date, with the amount of retirement claims coming in and with some potential delays at the agency level, we may not expect this to be kind of a super long time at this point. Now it gets into January, February, you don't have a full retirement processing claim, and I think that's a much longer delay. There's also often cases that just take a lot longer. So there's simple cases where you've worked for one agency your whole life, and it's pretty easy for OPM to do. But there's other cases where you bounce around different agencies. Maybe you left service, you came back. Maybe you've worked under the normal retirement system, but separately under a special category where you have a higher multiplier. Maybe some of your files are over at the National Archives. You have to get them there. So those types of things really delay the process and how long you get through the system. So you see a degree of variability between different types of cases in terms of getting through OPM.
That's great advice. I'm speaking with John Hatton, the Staff Vice President for Policy and Programs at the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association. All right, John, let's move into some other things that may be affecting federal civilians or the retired population. One of the things in the continuing resolution back in November included language blocking reductions in force. What are you seeing there in terms of compliance, notifications, people being brought back?
Well, in terms of compliance with those who were kind of the shutdown RIFs, those who were, the administration took the opportunity to say, we are not required to do this function by Congress right now because we're in a shutdown. There's no appropriations law. They started the process of reductions in force for some people because of the shutdown. Those have been reversed. Those people have been reinstated. Then there are other reductions in force that started before the shutdown. But the language in the continuing resolution was very clear. There's no funds to be used to implement, initiate, or even follow through on these RIFs. So the administration tried to go through with continuing to fire a group of State Department and Foreign Service employees. That was blocked by a court issuing a temporary restraining order against that based on that continuing resolution language. So the good news is that language passed as part of the CR that was negotiated in by Senator Kaine has been effective at stopping these reductions in force, not just ones that were started in the shutdown, some that were started before, and preventing those any new ones from going on until at least January 30th.
Well, with all of these changes in the delayed retirements and the hiring freezes, what are you sensing as the mood among federal employees right now as we get to the end of this year and the start of a new one?
Well, I don't know that it's good. I don't think we're at a point where it's recovered from what has been a very tumultuous year, and particularly coming off a shutdown where you had to work for a record amount of, what I think it was 43 days without pay, and other people were not working and coming back to large backlogs of work. Do you think, there are some signs of hope for a return to a little bit more normalcy? And I think this blocking the administration's reduction in force language, if we get full year appropriations bills done, I think that puts a little bit of a check on some of these executive actions. I think probably too late for many, but it may give a little bit more security for those currently in the federal workforce that have kind of made it this far, that maybe it won't go further. So I think we'll see. It's still, we're still working through the Congress is still working through the appropriations process. They've only passed 3 full year bills. I don't expect they'll pass all of the bills full year, but they are trying to get, in the Senate, they're trying to get 5 bills passed, which would be the bulk of spending for the federal government.
What are you tracking there in terms of federal pay raises for 2026?
Well, the president in August issued an alternative pay plan that would provide a 1% across the board pay increase. I don't expect that to change through the appropriations process. It doesn't look like anything's going to be passed this month. I mean, the Senate's trying to pass a 5-bill package, but it looks like they're having problems getting it through. So as long as Congress doesn't say anything, I would expect that alternative pay plan to be implemented via an executive order. So at least a 1% pay increase next year for federal employees.
That doesn't seem like it's keeping up with the cost of living adjustments.
No, it is not. Certainly the cost of living for everybody in America has continued to go up, as reflected by the Consumer Price Index. It's, inflation is still at elevated levels, and this is coming on the heels of several years of very high inflation. So it's not just the current increases in prices, but it's catching up to the past increases. So that continues to be an issue, I think, for federal employees, is that these pay raises, well, it's good to have something. It's really not keeping up with these costs. I mean, just look at health premiums, which is, not the entire basket of goods that you're looking at, but health premiums went up 12.3% on average this year for enrollees. So clearly a 1% pay increase is not going to keep up with that. So more of your income is being pulled away into healthcare increases, and all the other goods are going up at a higher rate as well. So it makes federal jobs less competitive, and that comes on top of a year where the jobs just became a whole lot less secure than they used to be, when certainly the work that people have been putting in through their public service has been devalued, whether it be shutdowns or just rhetoric or the way people have been treated. So certainly been a tough year. I don't think that 1% does nearly enough, but it is something. But, I just think that's likely what's going to happen, even if it's too little.
I've been speaking with John Hatton. He's Staff Vice President for Policy and Programs for NARF. John, thanks as always for your insight on these important issues.
Thank you for having me.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.